What's up angels, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren and just who they were, their impact on the paranormal community and just a little bit of background. I plan on doing a series on my channel just about all of their cases, but I thought that it was best to talk about who they were for people who don't know before we jump in to their cases. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so Ed and Lorraine Warren are two of the most famous paranormal investigators in the world. But I did want to just go into, they have thousands of cases, obviously like I said, it's believed that they had about 10,000 cases in their entire career. And I will be going into maybe not all 10,000 of them, but some of the most famous ones in the series on my channel. But I did just want to talk about who they were as people too. Okay, so Ed was born in September of 1926 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is over in the US. He is a self-taught and self-professed demonologist. Obviously something that came in incredibly handy when they moved on to their things. I couldn't find too much about his childhood, however it is said that Ed lived in a haunted house from a very young age. When he was 5 years old he saw a little ball of light, and this ball of light grew into the shape of their landlady who had actually passed away the year before. Nothing was said during this encounter, but he does claim to have seen it. And then after this he began to have dreams in which deceased family members, some of them of which he hadn't met, then started to come to him in his dreams, and they'd give him messages about his future. So one of the ones that he recounts is an aunt. So an aunt came to him and said that he would work with a lot of priests and help a lot of priests, but he would never become a priest himself. Now if anybody does know any of the cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren, you will know that he is not a priest. As I said, he is a demonologist. However, he did work with a lot of priests, and a lot of the time the cases that they would cover would have come from a priest recommending them to Ed and Lorraine. Now, Lorraine was born in January of 1927. She was a medium and described herself as a light trance worker. If you don't know what trance mediumship is, maybe when I film my video with my mum we can go into that because she knows a little bit more about it than I do. But that is how she described herself, and her abilities started from a very young age as well. She recounts being 12 years old and she was at her school and they were planting a sapling, and as she looked up she had a vision of the tree when it is fully grown, and it was swaying in the wind. And now she went to a school that had nuns involved, and one of the nuns came over and asked her what she was looking at, and she said, "I'm looking at the tree." And the nun turned very stern and looked at her and said, "Are you seeing the future?" And Lorraine said her response was, "Yeah, I guess I am." So that is them. They met and started dating when they were teenagers, and they actually got married in 1945 thanks to a sunken ship. That sounds a bit weird, but I will go into that. So Ed joined the Navy. It was right in the middle of the World Wars, and he joined the Navy in 1945 at 17 years old. However, he was only away for a few months before he was sent back on what they call survivor's leave, because the ship that he was on actually sunk in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. It's believed that during the time that he is back on his survivor's leave, that him and Lorraine got married, and then he went back and carried on in the Navy. However, they did have a child, a little girl named Judy, in 1946. Ed and Lorraine decided that after he was back that they actually were gonna, their career was never intentionally going to be in the side of the paranormal. They were actually going to be artists, and they chose their subject as haunted houses. So Ed would find these haunted houses in the newspapers, and he would give them to Lorraine, and then they would go to the haunted houses and sketch them, and then they would go to the front door, knock on the door and give these sketches in response for more and more information about these haunted locations. Now, they are said to have spent about 5 years doing this and travelling the whole of the US, getting all this information. Something that I also think is quite strange is that Lorraine, despite her wonderful gifts of being a medium, she actually didn't believe in it. She was very, very skeptic when they set out. She thought that maybe these people needed some attention, or they were having a very overactive imagination, and so she didn't really believe in it. She was just doing it because it was cool to draw. However, the more she was travelling and realising that a lot of these stories would be opposite sides of the country where people couldn't have reached each other and they were having very, very similar experiences, she thought, well, maybe there is something to this. Okay, so in 1952, Ed and Lorraine Warren founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, and they also created their Warren Occult Museum, which actually was an extension of their home in Monroe, Connecticut. This museum had thousands of tapes and pieces of evidence and files from all of their cases, and now that Ed and Lorraine have passed away, their daughter Judy and her husband Tony are actually the people that run this society. So they worked on, like I said, around 10,000 cases in their career as paranormal investigators. However, they didn't really see that as their main job. They decided that their main job was educators. So Ed and Lorraine would go around to universities and schools and try and educate young people and anybody that would listen on the occult and the paranormal. This was because in the 1960s there was a boom in interest in the occult, and the people that they were actually visiting during their cases seemed to be young people who had taken an interest in the occult, and then weird things had started happening. So they thought that by educating people that maybe they wouldn't feel the need to go and look for it themselves, and that they would just be able to cope with what Ed and Lorraine had told them during their lectures. Something that I like about Ed and Lorraine Warren is that they never charged a family for the cases that they went and investigated. They made all of their money from their museum and through the books that they wrote, and also all the university lectures that they gave. They never charged a family for helping them, and I quite like that. Obviously there are many, many cases that they covered. Like I said, all 10,000 of them. Won't be covering all 10,000 on my channel personally, just because obviously it will be the most famous ones that I cover, but I didn't want to not mention them in this video. So you have the case of Annabelle the doll, she will be the next video, and you also have the Perron family or the Conjuring, for people that will recognise it from that, and also the Amityville Horror House. Like I said, I didn't want to not speak about them in this video, but there will be videos around these exact hauntings to come in the future. As with most things paranormal and the occult, there comes with a lot of skepticism, and as Ed and Lorraine became more and more famous for their cases, the skepticism surrounding them and their procedures and what they were doing in their cases increased, to the point where Lorraine actually went to see a actress turned parapsychologist, and had some tests done on her mediumship. And this parapsychologist actually said that Lorraine's skills were far above average, which obviously is quite the compliment. So she did that, I think, to prove that she wasn't faking it, and also just for her own peace of mind to know herself that she wasn't faking it. Obviously I'm not her, so I can't say for certain, but yep. So there are thousands of skeptics that have looked into every single one of these case files, and a lot of people do say that a lot of them are made up. However, obviously it is just down to what we all believe personally, and I mean, they did do a lot for the paranormal community in my opinion, so who knows. There will always be skeptics. I'm not saying that things aren't exaggerated, especially with the world of Hollywood, which is what I'm going to talk about next. However, there are a lot of skeptics surrounding especially Ed and Lorraine Warren. Okay, so Ed and Lorraine cases have been made the most famous, I think, by the Conjuring universe, which is created by Hollywood. It's actually the second biggest horror movie franchise gross network wise. I believe it's about 2.1 billion. You can also see on a lot of cases, specifically the first Conjuring movie, that Lorraine was actually a consultant on that for different things. Obviously, there are around, I believe when I did my research, around 8 movies that have already been released into the Conjuring universe. However, there are many more to come, so they say. So yeah, I'm not really a horror movie girl. I'll be very, very honest with you. It's not really my thing. I actually watched The Conjuring with Becca on Halloween last year, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. There are a few jumpy bits, but it's not for me. I'm going to try and convince myself to sit down and watch as many of them as I can. But for me, with paranormal horror, it just feels a bit real, and I'm not very good at stuff like that. So yeah, but that's that. They obviously are very, very popular, and something that I will say, and I think I said it in my Enfield poltergeist, yeah, when I did my Enfield poltergeist case and I was speaking about the skepticism in that, what I will say is that Hollywood does exaggerate. There is dramatic effect and there has to be something extra added. However, that doesn't mean that these cases aren't real, and again, like I said before, it's completely down to our interpretation of whether we believe they're real or how we feel about these things. Okay, so now the sad part. Ed Warren passed away in 2006 and Lorraine Warren passed away in 2019. They are buried together in a cemetery in Connecticut. I don't like to say, as we know, the locations of places or things like this, because I feel like it is just a respect thing. I'm sure it's out there on the internet, you can find it if you want to know, but that is where they are buried. So it doesn't mean that, like I said before, the New England Society for Psychic Research is now ran by Lorraine's daughter and their son-in-law, Tony, and they run that. And the Warren Occult Museum was open for a very long time, but it has since closed, so people are unable to visit that now. I would love to have gone. I hope that they do decide to reopen it in the future, because I feel like that would be very, very interesting. But for now, it is closed. You can go onto their website. I think it's thewarrens.net, but I'm not going to say yes and no to that. You can just type Ed and Lorraine Warren or Warren Occult Museum or the New England Society for Psychic Research in on the internet, and it will direct you to their pages, and it does show you bits and bobs on their website. But yeah, I don't know how other people feel about this. Personally, I think that regardless of whether you believe that their cases are real or how you feel about them as people, I feel like they did do a lot for the paranormal community in regards to evidence. And again, I mean, maybe the evidence is faked. I don't know, I wasn't there when it was taken. I do think they did do a lot, and they do deserve a little bit of respect for everything that they did do for the paranormal community. Okay guys, I think that is it for this week's video. If there are any Ed and Lorraine Warren cases you know of that you would like me to cover, please let me know and I will go into them and do all my research that I usually do. I'm away for the next week, however there will be a video next week because I have already filmed it, or I will have already filmed it by the time this one's gone up, and it will be scheduled and ready to go for next Friday. I am planning on hopefully convincing my mum to finally sit down with me and do the interview with a medium, and so hopefully that will be not after the Annabelle video that is coming out next Friday. That will be the video in 3 weeks. So I hope everyone has a wonderful week. I hope you are happy and healthy and positive, and I will see you angels next Friday for another video. Bye!